Today on Woodworking with Wes, we have a demonstration to show you. Recently, I was involved in the restoration or partial restoration of an 1840s home. The part of the restoration that I was involved with was cabinets, but some of the other things that we did was replace an exterior crown mold that went around some of the pieces of the outside of the house that had been riddled with dry rot. In fact, this is a piece of the stuff that we made to replace it with because I wanted to have an original piece for you, and it just crumbled into dust when we took it off the house. So we're going to show you how to make this. Now, just for a story of clarification, as a cabinet maker and as home builders always, we go to a molding mill or to our retail big box stores and buy pre-made molding. No such thing as a pre-made 1840s molding. This molding was made by hand. And today I'm going to show you how we made this piece of molding for our restoration project. To start off on our molding, I'm going to show you the end here so you can kind of get an idea of the cuts that we're going to make. We're going to make a bevel cut on the back side. We're going to make a scoop cut, and then we're going to round off this edge. We start off with our piece of wood. This is the piece of wood we'll be starting off with. It's 1.25 inches thick, 4 inches wide. What I did is I just went and got a 2x6 and milled it down to 1.25 inches by 4. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this angle cut on the back. We've set our saw at 15 degrees and we're going to make that angle cut first so that we have a good piece of wood to hold on to and a solid piece of wood to run against our fence. So let's start there. The next step in our molding, let's turn this around so you can start to begin to see how we're shaping things. Our next step is going to be making this large cove. We're going to make this cove on our table saw also. I'm going to go ahead and get it set up, and then I'm going to explain all of the angles and what I did to set it up in order to make our cove cut. We've now set up a fence on our table saw at an angle so that we can run our pieces of wood across and make our cove cut. But let's talk a little bit about it. This fence that we've clamped to our table saw is at a 62.5 degree angle to our blade. Now, I measured the height of my blade at 5/8 because we're going to make our cut 5/8 of an inch deep on an 1.25 inch piece of wood. So there's going to be 5/8 left and 5/8 deep because cuts halfway through. And what I did is I set it up at 5/8. I put my fence on. I made just the tiniest little preliminary cut to make sure that my distance from the top of my molding to the beginning of my cut was what I wanted. And so that's the way you set where your fence is, by determining the size of the top of your molding. So this distance right here, this is the molding the way it sits on the house. And so your top piece here goes like this, runs through. Then, when you get it all set up, then you crank your blade down to where it just barely makes a little bit of a cut, and you run your pieces of wood through the saw, increasing the depth of your blade each time until you have reached the desired depth of your cut. So that's what we're going to do now, and let's just go ahead and get started with that. You can now begin to see the cove that is being cut by our blade. We're not quite all the way there yet, but I just wanted to show you how nice that cuts that out. We are using a 50-tooth combination carbide blade in our cuts. That gives us a nice smooth cut as we run through, and we're just little by little taking our cuts. We're going to go ahead and finish that up, and we'll come back after we get done making our cove all the way. And like I say, when we get all done, we're going to be 5/8 of an inch left in our thickness here because we'll be 5/8 of an inch deep to the bottom of our cove. Okay, you can see that we have 5/8 of an inch left. Our cut is 5/8 of an inch deep. I just wanted to say that when I was doing this, I wore my grippy gloves so that I could really hold onto my piece of wood and push my wood as I was running it through the saw against our diagonal fence in order to make sure that our cut was going out really smooth and even. So when you push it across, you're not just pushing it this way, you're pulling it this way against your fence in order to give you that perfect cut as you go through. But that's why I was wearing my gloves, is to make sure that I could pull that against the top. The next step, or the first part of making our little round part here at the bottom of our molding, is to set our saw blade at 35 degrees and set our saw fence at 1/8 of an inch. Now I've made a preliminary cut here so you can see what we're going to be doing. This is the top of our molding. Here was our angle that we put on to begin with. Here's our scoop cut, and now we're going to make this cut right here. So let's do that right now. Our final saw blade cut will be to set our saw straight back up again, and we're just going to nibble off this little angle cut right here, this little sharp point right here. We're just going to nibble that off a little bit, and then the rest of it is all done by a sander. We're going to use our palm sander and a hand sanding, and then finish our smoothing up. So let's set our saw back up straight and make our little cut right on the end of our little point there and get that knocked off. We've returned our blade to 90 degrees, and we're going to set our saw fence at 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to nibble off that little corner. So let's watch us do that. The rest of our work is all going to be done by hand sanding, and we're just going to take our palm sander, we're going to round this a little bit, but we're also going to do a lot of hand sanding. Everything that is done by the table saw is now done. The rest of it is just sanding and shaping in order to get our final smooth profile on the bottom end of our molding. I think we did a good job on recreating our 1840s molding. You know, I'll bet this original molding was all done by hand without machines. I'm so thankful we have nice table saws to do things like that. Anyway, there's a fun little project and an exercise in how you can recreate things with just your table saw. Let's create something else on our table saw next time on Woodworking with Wes.